what do you think your greatest achievement is?
As a mother, my daughter. And why I have a daughter who's a very high achieving young child. She just won 3rd place in atmospheric sciences for the DC STEAM Fair this year.
Wow.
3 years straight of making it to that next level. No matter what I do with her in terms of putting her into camp or some special program, she tries her best and never really disappoints me because she tries her best, and that's kind of our motto. And she's doing robotics, so I think that is one of the biggest successes. So all of those things that I've done with so many other children, I'm finally getting to do with my own daughter. One of the other big accolades or things that I would say is receiving the Washington Award, which is a very prestigious award. Now, you shake your head, but I didn't know what the heck the Washington Award was when they called me. And that was after sending me a letter and then prompting me and embarrassing me. And I'm like, ooh, let me Google this real quick. And if you go online and look up the Washington Award, what becomes obvious is the list of previous recipients. And so someone that you might know would be like Bill Nye the Science Guy, or Dean Kamen, or Orville Wright, or Neil Armstrong. And these were some of the previous award recipients. But I was the first person of color to receive the award.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big, prestigious award.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How much work did it take you to get a job at NASA? Like, how much schooling, and did you have any jobs prior to your position at NASA?
Oh, that's a great question. So what did I do before I got the job, and the preparation that I kind of did to get the job? So I did an undergraduate degree. Actually, my undergraduate is a Bachelor of Science from MIT. And in between, I took half a year off and went to school in New York. Went back to live with my mom for a semester. So that took 5 years versus the typical 4. And then I went on to grad school because I wanted to work in human spaceflight with NASA, but that was the year of the first shuttle disaster. So that delayed any opportunities for jobs. And in between going to grad school, I worked at a homeless shelter doing their computer software. It was very early, and so I helped in terms of organizations using computers and software, so I helped them to set up their platform. And I also worked at an engineering firm for the summer. I went on to grad school and I did a master's and a PhD, but during the time that I was working on the PhD, I started working for NASA. So I was walking one day through the school halls and they had a career fair, and I said, oh, where's NASA Goddard? I'd worked one summer as an intern at NASA Langley, but I didn't know about Goddard, which was just 20 minutes outside of the city, and so that piqued my interest. I found out about summer opportunities and applied, but applied late, so they said, oh, deadline's passed. But I wowed them so much in the interview, they went and found extra money, and so I became a summer intern. And as a graduate student, PhD graduate student, I mentored an undergraduate student while working there. And I won their first ever technical presentation competition. And so in the middle of my presentation, they offered me a job. So that's how I got my job at NASA.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
As a woman of color and a woman in particular, how did you find inspiration to become part of the male-dominated field of science, and what obstacles did you have to overcome?
So it's interesting. So you asked the question of sort of what drove me to the career that I'm in. You mentioned science. And in actually, when I first started, I really was more about the engineering. And over time, I realized that an engineer just doesn't make things like, cool toys or gadgets because they're cool. The real thing that drove me was that I needed to have the science aspect behind it. So the things that I was creating were going to have an impact to understanding science, to maybe solving big science problems. And so that internal drive was really something that was always there. So just the need to have a contribution to science in the world and, of course, making cool things. There was always a person behind me that was driving the knowledge of past contributions of African American or people of color, and that was my mother. Very early, my mother believed that we should know our Black history. Now we say African American, but back then it was Black history. And so I was constantly making a point to learn about people that contributed to the things in the areas that I was of interest of. And I really didn't find out about maybe contributions of African Americans in my profession of aerospace until I entered MIT, and there was one or two faculty members. There was really one in the department. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I found out about people like Katherine Johnson. Now, I found out 20 years ahead of the Hidden Figures movie that I actually met Katherine, but I was very grateful that going to a historically Black college for my graduate degrees exposed me to people that were of color in working in the technical disciplines and many other disciplines that really inspired me to continue what I was doing.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Why do you think humans should go to Mars? And if humans did colonize Mars, who should be able to go there?
That's a hard. Why should we go to Mars? Well, first of all, I think there's just this desire to study and understand the things around us. We're learning about the Earth every day, but there's also this other side to our sort of realm, and that's the solar system and of course the Milky Way. So there's this innate curiosity that man wants to understand. How do we fit into the big picture of the universe? And there, I think, are pieces to the puzzle of evolution, perhaps at Mars. And then there is some desire to maybe terraform Mars as another habitat. That might be a possible solution. Personally, I would like us to take better care of Earth before we go somewhere else. But I know that if we're going to do something like terraforming Earth or making it habitable for the future, it's going to take a very long time, so we need to start really soon. In terms of who should go, anyone that wanted to, that could do it safely, so that it should be sort of an even playing field, although I know it will take quite a bit to get people ready to be able to make that their future destination in terms of training and education. I mean, it's going to be, you've heard of like extreme sports, like X sports. So this would be like, extreme survivability skills, because you're going to have challenges that you've never faced. And you can't go around to the corner grocery store and get off of work after being at work. You have to bring everything there to make things from the surface. So tools that are important, capabilities and survivability skills are going to be really important for whoever goes. Have you watched the Lost in Space series? It's on Netflix. When you get a chance to do that, and you'll see, because they do take children. So they take children and they take teenagers. And what they are tested at, and the ability to not just survive, but be able to think quickly and not panic becomes important skills as well. So, yeah, if you got the mental toughness, then I think perhaps the physical. I mean, I would love to see somebody who is physically challenged still be able to go too. But yeah, I think that's what would be the criteria.
What plans do you have for your future career at NASA?
What plans do I have for NASA? So I've been in my current position almost 2.5 years, and the title is New Business Lead for Instrument Systems and Technology Division. I've done quite a number of jobs across the agency, meaning headquarters and at Goddard, and worked 1 year at Langley. But I think that I'd just like to continue to grow, and so at some point, maybe in about a year or so, I'll start looking for the next good job, using all the skills. So this particular job has used skills that I'd kind of forgotten about, and that's what keeps me interested in that, the fact that I can do jobs that grow, push on my capabilities. My job is not about managing now, it's really about being strategic. And so as you become more and more senior at the agency, you kind of go through these phases where you're designing and you're doing an analysis. And then you become a lead and you lead a small team. And then you become maybe a manager, which you're leading multiple teams. And then I've done technology as a chief technologist, and I did small business and working interfaces between businesses. And then now I'm working as a person who does partnerships and technology development, and how do we apply that? And when a scientist comes up with an idea, I think I've got something for you, and so where are we going with the future? That's the tough thing. Like, how do I don't have a crystal ball, but there are many different techniques we use to really look at where our strengths and our weaknesses are, our opportunities and the threats for the future, and where do we go. So after to kind of help my group get into a better position, I would like to think about it in a broader context across the agency. So probably maybe headquarters, go back to headquarters.